Why do you think it offends people? Are you offended by that word?
I know this is going to sound crazy, but
That's where the word came from. We gave it the meaning.
Words go deeper than the way they sound, just simply in conversation.
the sooner you accept that, you're 10 steps ahead of other people.
How we speak to people, how we speak to ourselves internally results in how we live our life, where we go, what direction we'll take, and in the end, right where we end up.
That is more important than people realize.
I'm offended when I see like political leaders using
Like
it.
Trump, I
Others-
like it when they say it.
You can have a profound impact on somebody simply by smiling when you pass by them on the street and saying one thing.
There's more than one F word. Now, I know of an F word, and it's used quite a bit these days. Is that the F word that you're referring to? What it is, Brad Lee, back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. Today in the studio, folks, I have a real treat for you, especially if you've ever felt like faith was failing you, like your purpose was out of reach, or if you've struggled to reconcile belief with real-world chaos. Beth Townsend is in the building with her son, Rhett. How you guys doing?
Wonderful, sir.
Now, out of curiosity, and by the way, if you guys don't know who these guys are, you'll soon find out, but they wrote a book called There's More Than One F Word. There's more than one F word. Now, I know of an F word, and it's used quite a bit these days. Is that the F word that you're referring to?
It is not.
No. So what other F words are there?
So there are flammable, there are festive, there is fearless. There's a lot of F words. And as a language communication person, when my son told me he loved this coach that he was following, obviously I'm interested in what my son is listening to.
Who was the coach? Cardone?
Coach was Andy.
Andy Elliott? Yeah, he drops some F-bombs, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
He drops a lot of them. And he's great. But, you know, I'm still a mom, and I'm like, whoever is reaching into my son's life, I want him to teach him skill. I want him to teach him character. And so when he said, and I've written 2 books prior to this.
What were those called?
The first one is Life on Purpose, and that's my wrestling with purpose. The second one is called No Hamsters in Heaven. It's a Christian devotional. And I had no intention of writing another book until he said, you know, what he said about the coach, because he was like, you got to go follow him. You're going to love him. And then after.
Well, he's a faith-based guy.
Yes. Andy?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he does drop a lot of F-bombs.
He does.
And, you know, I'm a faith-based guy,
I know.
even though, you know, I'm a little more old school.
Yeah.
Because I know his name really isn't Jesus. And I think words were made by people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when I use an F-bomb, like I won't use it here. Why? Well, because clearly you're here, number one, and you're a classy lady. Like if it was just him, maybe. Why? Because he's a young dude. He can handle it. And not only that, I think it's a man-made word. It only means what we think it means. So if I said the word tree, which is fine, right? Or flammable is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But what if flammable meant what that does?
Right.
Then that would be the bad word, wouldn't it?
Right.
So it's intent. It's not the word. That's
Sure.
just what I believe. And I also think that we made that word up. So I don't know if saying it is a bad thing, really. But I do agree there's better words that you can find and use, especially if you're as, you know, badass as you think you are. Like find better words. I've been trying to. Only because if I were to drop an F-bomb, which I do still, that's less likely to be shared by people like you. So maybe I'm trying to talk to your son and you hear me, but I said that. So now you're not forwarding it to him. So I could have just picked a different word, hit the same impact, and now you would have forwarded it. So Andy, me, anybody who's out there using F-bombs, the actual F-bomb, should think about getting this book and reading it, because guess what? I believe this is true. This is a true book, which is why I was glad you guys are coming on, because I think more people need to class it up a bit.
Amen.
Now, you going back, you said you dropped out of high school. You didn't get to go to college. Why? What happened?
So I didn't drop out of high school. I graduated high school.
Okay.
But when I graduated high school, my mom's third marriage ended. She was broke. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, so it was kind of sink or swim. She said, honey, I'm selling the house. She really wasn't selling the house. She was surrendering the house. And she was moving to Virginia. And she said, you're going to have to make your way. So
You couldn't come with her.
I could have. I had been accepted into the University of Southern Mississippi. All my friends were going, and I was absolutely determined to go too. I know this is going to sound crazy, but my dad was on the 9th wife who had money. They said they would pay. I went. They didn't pay. I left and went to work. So
9th wife, your dad?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
He was, what F word was he using?
Yeah. I could think of a few, but yeah, he just.
I wish philanderer started with an F, but since it doesn't, we can't use that one. 9 wives. What the heck? Well, at least they were wives. At least he married them.
Well, there's some question to some of that, but the 9th one, that was the last one. But I went into work because.
Which one was your mother?
My mother was the first.
First one.
Yeah.
And you had 5 siblings, you said? Mm-hmm. And you were the youngest? And so after they divorced, he just kept getting married and divorced. What was the average length of those marriages?
Short.
Now, was he just off and running?
He was off and running. He never really worked, so he found women that had money.
Oh. So he is a philanderer. I wonder
and they fell for it.
What the definition of philandery is.
That is a good question.
We'll look it up.
Zeno Goss.
Yeah. Well, so I'm just trying to I like to put myself where you were. So basically your mom says, I'm moving to Virginia. And how old are you? 18?
17.
17. And she's basically saying either come with me or figure it out.
Yeah.
And 17 is old enough to figure it out.
Yeah.
So you said, screw it. And then Dad said, hey, we'll pay for you. Go to college. So you moved to, where did you have to move or?
Well, I moved 30 miles.
Okay. So then you enrolled in school. Did they pay for at least the first semester?
No. Someone came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, see ya. So literally someone.
Were you heartbroken?
I was heartbroken because by then I'd had a taste of what it could be.
Yeah.
But I knew deep down it wasn't really going to be. But I had a little taste of what it was like to be what I called normal at that stage. And I tripped over myself a couple of years. I stayed there. I did eventually move into Virginia and started property management as a career. And that really, I like to say really worked for me because it pretty much had to. And so that was the beginning.
Did you go move in with your mom?
No.
So you just moved where she was?
I moved not where she was. I moved to the state she was. My sister was with a company and I needed a place to live because, rent and all the things out of budget. So I took a property to manage and moved into one of the empty apartments. And that's why I took the job, is because it had a salary and an apartment and I needed both. And that was the open door. And I packed up a little U-Haul, rolled my little self to Virginia and began a career I'm a big believer in that industry because you don't have to have a degree.
How did you get the money to do that?
Well, I don't really remember. I didn't have any money. We didn't have any money. So I was working at the time. So
like at a Dairy Queen?
At a bank.
So you were always kind of a classy position. Property manager, bank teller, stuff like that. Were you a bank teller?
I was a bank teller. I was a head bank teller.
Because when I was a kid that age, it was always, restaurants or landscapers. It was blue collar where I was from. So you moved to Virginia, you got a job, found a nice little career, stayed in that for a while. And at what point did you get married and have him?
So 3 years in Virginia, several years in Atlanta, and worked my way up to regional VP, worked right directly under the owner. That's how I became a trainer, because you just get to the top of your field and people start saying, can you come speak? I was like a guru for the industry because I was very positive and I was very, just cheerleader. And so after that point, met my husband. He was a trainer. I gave up my career to raise my children because my mom worked 2 and 3 jobs. I wanted to be there for my kids. And then my daughter was born in 94. He was born in 97. And I began writing at that point because I could do that from home.
And training property management?
Training started in property management. And when I met my husband, his dad, he was in mobile home, RV, other industries. And
sales?
Sales, very closing, write your language. And so my first seminar for someone outside of property management was telephone sales. I was in my 20s. These men were in their 40s and 50s. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But it turned out okay.
Well, sales is, I think, personally, one of the keys to success.
Absolutely.
Because people ask me all the time, what should I do? And I say, number one, get in the position to receive commission. Because if you're not in the position to receive commission, I promise you're probably not headed down the right road. So you had a couple kids, stayed home. That was that.
Right.
Never went and worked again?
Well, I did training. That's how I got into training. So when I was in Atlanta, I did a lot of training, consulting. I had my own business. And I did a lot of, go in, analyze a property, check out their team, see if they have the right, dynamic team in place. And that was all in Atlanta. But when we moved to Tennessee, things that's when I began really writing. I did a business article for a magazine every month. I had really wrestled with this topic of purpose. So
all the time being faith-based?
All the time, no, not necessarily being faith-based, because when I was teaching seminars at a young age, people would like, well, how are you doing this? And they would say, how did you know your purpose? And, my purpose was just to make ends meet. And eventually the question dug a little deeper. And I started thinking, well, what really, isn't purpose a God thing? And we were really warped at faith as a kid. Everything my dad did was about faith, and it was just all wrong. So I had to kind of relearn all that. I had to unlearn and relearn. And so I started interviewing people. I just started sending letters out to people saying, hey, can I come talk to you about how you're changing the world over there? And many people said yes, and many people said no. And that's the first book.
Would you say that was your first foray into personal development?
I think it was my first foray into personal development, because when someone asks a question and you really don't have an answer, I could have a theoretical answer, but there were people that were living that and I wasn't. Yep. And so I thought, I want to know who wakes up every day and they know what to do with their life and how they're doing it. What did they overcome? And that was 2001. And I've been pretty much interviewing people since about that topic, because people wrestle with, what do I do with my life?
So the first 2 books, did they go huge or not really?
Not really.
Is writing books make you a lot of money or no?
Didn't
make me any, I can tell you that.
No, it hasn't. Part of my transition has been going out of the faith-based world back into the business world, because the faith-based world didn't work for me, but the business world did. So my question is, why am I not back there? So when he brought up the F word and we got to talking about that, and I said, I had no intention of writing another book until he said what he said. And I said, I'm going to write another book, but this was going to be a business book. And so that's how this one came about.
So if someone gets this book, essentially, what are they going to learn? A bunch of F words that aren't the one?
They're going to learn that their words matter.
That is more important than people realize. They matter. Again, words definitely matter.
And how you present yourself. It's not just for other people, it's for you. How you present yourself, how you speak, how you dress, how you walk, everything, all of that matters. And I think that book reminds you of the power you have to really step up and say, okay, I know who I am. I know who I'm not. I'm stepping it up.
Does it show you the power that you have, or does it assume that you know
It shows you.
So if someone doesn't know that they have the power, they will after that book. And then the son comes in with this ball-headed, foul-mouthed trainer and said, look, Mom, I love this guy. And then you listen to him and you're like, oh my God, he's capturing my kid. And you're in the car business. That doesn't help.
It does not.
Yeah. Cause but I love the car business. If anything ever happened, I would probably go back. I'm considering even buying some dealerships. Because dude, I just love the car business. Always have. And it's a license to print money. But you learn some colorful language at the car dealership, hanging out with the fellas all day.
That's right.
So then you said you wanted to write it with her.
That's correct.
Why?
Well, I was a creative writing major at LSU. I've always liked to write different stuff, odds and ends. I've put a lot of stuff together, but never quite finished anything, besides academic stuff. So this was a good opportunity for us to collaborate on something that was interesting to us, right? Ideologically speaking, the book isn't just about, hey, you're a bad person if you curse, right? The book is meant to expand your internal dialogue, which will bring result to your external dialogue, which will bring a result to your actions that you take, right? So the book's not like, hey, reprimanding people for cussing, right? Because of course the car business, the language is colorful. I came to her casually about the trainer, didn't really care that he cussed so much, right? It wasn't a big deal to me, still isn't that big of a deal, right? But the idea of it is that language means so much to us, how we speak to ourselves, how we speak to others, whether we work for them or that we're just passing by the street, right? You can have a profound impact on somebody simply by smiling when you pass by them on the street and saying one thing, hey, I love your hat, right? They might be having the worst day of their life, and you can help turn that around, right? So how we speak to people, how we speak to ourselves internally results in how we live our life, where we go, what direction we'll take, and in the end, right, where we end up. So the goal of it was to work together on a project, because it is a niche thing, right? There's not a lot of mother-son combos that write books together.
Are you like a mama's boy?
I'm a mama's boy. Yeah, I'm very close with both my parents.
Where's Dad? Are you still married?
Yeah, 32
good.
years.
See, there you go.
Broke that cycle.
That's right. I was going to say, I wouldn't blame you if you weren't, but but that's good that you broke that cycle. So were you a mama's boy though? I was
right. I feel like I'm a perfect combination of both my parents. I have all my outgoing, my confidence, my go-get-em nature from my mom, but also have my stoicism, my ability to make a sound decision and slow down and make the decision I need to make from my dad, right? So I blend both of those together, especially in the car business. You're working 5-6 deals at once. You have to be able to slow it down.
Is Dad a man's man?
He's a man's man.
That's right.
Masculine?
Yes.
Got my closer from that.
Well, if he's selling RVs and in sales, most people are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got your closing chops from Pops.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So you said, hey, I'll pitch in, I'll write with you. And you guys said, oh, that's a wonderful thing. That's just like the innocent little beginning, all because Andy Elliott was cussing.
That's right. And he's a great guy. I spent some time with him in September, right? I've been through every one of his training courses, right? Like I learned a lot from him when I was still selling cars.
How much have you dropped with him?
How much have I dropped with him?
Yeah.
Not that much. I called him one day.
You don't want to be part of his brotherhood?
Well, no, so I called him, right? So he was on Clubhouse one day. And I was at a store in St. Francisville. I had my own little Dodge store. We sold like 85 stores a month. The dealer I was working for in Baton Rouge asked me to go open the store. So it was my own little store, my own little operation. He was on Clubhouse one day, said, hey, 2 people called me after this. I'm going to set you up for my online training for free. So I was heck with it. So I called his number, right? Somehow, was it 2 people or not? I'm not quite sure, right? I called him that night.
Probably not. But that's marketing.
Exactly. So I called him.
It's called limiting urgency.
That's right.
There's only 2 spots.
That's right. But I called and that night and he said, hey, look, you're going to get on my training platform. In 6 months, if the person that you're with doesn't want to make you a GM, then we're going to find somebody that does, right? Because I'm going to be a dealer one day. That's 100% my pathway. So 6 months later, I left where I was and went to work for a great group in Nashville, a big private group in Nashville. And that segued into now the public group that I work with now in a better position than I was before. So I never actually paid for his training once. I did pay my flight to go out to a seminar, paid a couple of grand and whatnot, spend the weekend out there. But to this day, I still have the Lightspeed login and I've never paid $1 for it. So I don't know if he forgot that I was on there or I was just.
No, he probably didn't forget. Andy's a good dude. He gets undue hate online.
I agree.
I've never heard him say a bad word or a scammy, let me just get their dough. Like he's not like that. And, I've been on like family vacations and man, he just has these haters. But it's because he's polarizing and he says these things. But no, again, people always like try to vilify me for platforming him.
Sure.
And I'm like, dude, listen, I have my own opinion of people. He's been always a good dude since. And their whole thing is, well, his past, you've read about his past.
Mm-hmm.
People make mistakes, man. I've
Absolutely.
made mistakes. It doesn't define you.
Right.
There's people that have been bad, criminalistic people, and now they're excellent people.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, look at past presidents and congressmen, and a lot of good people weren't always so good.
Mhm.
And I know myself, now I think I'm the closest thing to angelic walking the planet. And that's the truth. I do nothing but help people. I won't take $1 if I think I can't give you more than the value of that $1. My ethics changed when I was a younger guy in the car business. Dude, I was trying to make money and close deals, and I'd stick you in a vehicle. I don't care if you needed it or wanted it. You were getting it because I wanted a commission. I wouldn't do that today. But you learn, you grow, you get older, you pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good that you've instilled in this young man. What are you, 27, you say?
27.
Yes, you got a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully. That's another thing. These youngsters nowadays, they think, we're old. Well, dude, she might outlive you. In other words, she might have more time than you do. You ever think about that?
Yeah.
Someone at a meeting once, he was 19, talking all kinds of smack because I think I was like 50. I think I just turned 50. And he's basically saying, hey, basically your life's pretty much over, and, tell a young buck what you would do. And I said, well, first of all, I'd be grateful. He said, well, why? I got all the time in the world. 2 days later, killed himself on a
Ooh.
motorcycle accident.
Oh, no.
He didn't realize when he was talking shit about how much time I had left,
Right.
and making fun of it, that he had 2 days. No one knew.
Mhm.
So again, I bet you he wouldn't have been thinking that. He would have traded with me. So you always have to be grateful.
You do.
I wish there was a F word for great gratitude. What would it be?
Well, I think fearless. I think that when you face your fear, you become grateful for things that you've overcome. I've walked through a lot of things that were scary, especially early in life. And I'm very grateful. While I wasn't at the time glad that my mom left me high and dry, it really wasn't that she was a bad mom. She was just broke.
To me, that sounds like a normal story.
Yeah, it is for a lot of people, especially straight out of high school. A lot of people just go to work. But some of those lessons that I walked through.
Do you wish you went to college?
Do I wish no, I don't.
Would you recommend that 18-year-olds go to college?
Not necessarily. I really wouldn't, because I think that if you think you have to have college, you should probably go to college. But if you know that you believe in yourself and you're willing to get the skills elsewhere, he's on the job training every day. He learned a lot in college. I'm glad he was able to go to college.
Did you get a degree?
I did. And I believe
In what?
Creative writing, English.
And how are you using it?
I write a great email.
He wrote a book.
I mean, end of the day, right? Like
Well, if this blows up and all of a sudden you guys become major authors and you're touring the world, you'll be like, yeah, that's right. I got my degree.
That's right.
But do you think you could have wrote the book without that degree?
I do. I've always had an interest in writing. Right.
She wrote it too.
Mm-hmm.
She don't have a degree.
I don't believe in college in form of the degree should take you somewhere. I believe in going to college is beneficial because it allows you to have the ability to think differently than you did before. Right. So
You learn.
Mm-hmm, you learn.
I think the value of college is relationships. Because at the end of the day, what's the most important thing in life?
Relationships.
Yeah, relationships.
Yeah, most people never learn that either.
Right.
So, okay, by the way, folks, you can get this book wherever they sell books. There's more than one F word, Redefining Success, one F word at a time. Does Andy know that you inspired a book to be written?
No, sir.
Why don't you tell him?
I'm going to tell him. I'm going to reach out to him.
Can you text him?
I can text him. I got his number.
His
I've
new
been
one?
being very quiet about that.
He switched it
He switched it how long ago? Because I texted him like 6 months ago or 8
about
months
a couple
ago.
weeks.
Okay, so maybe I'll need to get you.
Well, I'm sure if you text him, someone will reach out to you. Yeah, I'm sure he didn't cut the number off. Probably one of his team.
Right.
Yeah, I'll let him know. I'll tell him. I'll tell him to watch the episode. You should give him a shout out. But the F word caused the book to be written. So what if the book makes a lot of impact? Then wouldn't you agree that the word, the F word, you know, the one we're talking about, was necessary?
Yes.
Yes, I would say so. It was useful.
There you go. See? And that's my position. Like, folks, like if I said the F bomb and somebody's like, oh, my child's listening. Well, again, your child's 27.
Right.
Like he's not a child, and he's probably said it.
Right. Oh yeah.
Have you said it?
Yes.
So do you say it anymore?
Every now and then I'll let a good one fly. Yeah. But you know, and it's really not about that F word. Again, it's about your ability to communicate something deeper than just an F word.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to craft your conversations in such a way. You know, I like to say most people don't talk about what most people need to talk about. You know, talk about relationships. Those are hard. You know, those are really require a level of communication that's not just words. It's understanding. It's, you know, conflict resolution and things like that. So it's really more about the quality of the conversation and, you know, coming to some sense of who you are as a person. While I may not drop F-bombs, I get that it's, you know, generational for me, but he does. I've heard him. Both my kids do. I have a daughter who's 30. She's a mom with 2 kids. I've heard them both do it. That doesn't diminish them in my eyes. It's just not the word I choose.
And let's say it like this too, right? The F word, right? The one that we all know of, right? It's a superficial word to its extent, right? So we use it when we're mad, when we're happy, when we're excited, when we're intense, right? The concept of the book is to dive deeper into each of the 12 words that we use. So there's only so much meaning that the F word can portray. The idea of the book, it dives deeper into each word. So it dives vertically into each word, right? The F word is rather a horizontal word, right? You can use it only horizontally.
Well, it depends on how you're using it.
Sure.
Because I mean, even horizontally,
mm-hmm.
you know, which is probably the main use of the word.
Right.
But,
it is.
But the original word F-U-C-K came from back in the 1500s, I think, maybe even before that. And it was actually fornication under consent of the king. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
I did.
That's an acronym. So that's where the word came from. It doesn't mean anything. It means you have permission to have children.
Mm-hmm.
We gave it the meaning because what do you do to have children? And then they just started calling it that. Mm-hmm. So that's why I don't think we're doing bad by saying it. But I also agree there's probably some better words. And if you were smart, you would learn some better words that you would use more often than that word, because that word, for some reason, offends people. Mm-hmm. Why do you think it offends people? Are you offended by that word?
I wouldn't. I'm offended when I see like political leaders using
like
it. Trump, any of the others.
So I like it when they say it. Why? Yeah. Because it shows me that they're not traditional politicians.
Yeah.
Kissing everyone's ass. Yeah. And saying whatever they need to say to get a vote.
Yeah.
Because I like it when he uses it.
Yeah. Because he means something. I mean,
it's because you can see like he's not your normal politician.
Right. But when you have others that don't have the depth that he does have, and they just throw it out there and throw it out there and throw it out there, I think that it's just it's not the use of it. It's the overuse of it. It's just the, you know, so. And
it might be how you were raised too.
It is.
You know, because again, older generations, because I'm as old as you, or as young as you, I should say, because we're both pretty young still.
That's right.
But like, dude, it's just, you didn't say that.
Right.
It wasn't on TV. It wasn't on the radio. There was no cable. Like, you just didn't hear that word a lot. But we'd say it a lot after there was no parents around.
Yeah.
But to me, it was never really offensive. And I always thought whoever's offended by that word, other than classy ladies, I'll give them a pass. Like, if he was offended by that word, I'd think lame, like overprotected little pussy. And even the word pussy is worse than the F-bomb, if you ask me. But that's what I would think. Why? Because, dude, that's a word.
Right.
It's just a word. But again, as I age, words do matter. And if it hurts a person or causes them to create a self-image or an identity, because words will shape your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And that does affect your results, was what you were saying earlier. You start to realize, like, maybe that word does matter. Maybe I could come up with better words or more effective words or even just less offensive. Before I'm like, dude, you're offended? What a puss. Now I'm thinking like, well, what's the purpose of me offending people if I don't have to?
Well,
So I would say I was fortunate. There's an F word. Let's come up with your 6 F words.
Flammable is number 1. Right. Flammable. So the concept behind flammable is, who are you when life throws you in the fire? What does it mean to live on fire? What does it mean to live with purpose, right? On fire, and be the person you need to be. So when your back is against the wall, when life spits in your face, when you're in the worst position you've ever been in, who are you going to be? You're going to turn and run away. You're going to face, and you're going to win, right? You're going to be a victim, or you're going to be a victor.
But why the word flammable?
Because life's fire, right? Who are you when life throws you in the fire? So the conversation.
Yeah, but flammable isn't fire. Flammable is it's flammable. It doesn't mean fire.
Right. So living
Why
on
not fire though?
Well, living on fire, right? Being flammable is right to live on fire.
Flammable means the potential to catch fire.
Okay. So, but does everyone catch fire?
You're going to have to go rewrite the book.
No.
Hey, good thing it's not out yet.
No.
You can revise that if you want to, because flammable, that means you have the ability to catch fire. That doesn't mean you're on fire.
But does everyone catch fire in their life?
Oh, depends. Probably not, I would say.
So the idea of the book is, right, how do you
become
catch fire?
flammable so you can catch fire?
Right. How do you become that?
All right.
How do you live
We'll
on
give
fire?
that one a pass.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
The next one is fortune.
I like fortune.
Mm-hmm.
What's that one?
Fortune is like, the old saying, fortune favors the bold, right? Who are you? How can you be bold enough to step into a position where you need to be successful when life doesn't go your way, or when it does, right? Like even when you're on the mountaintop or in the valley. Fortune is about putting yourself in the right position. That luck doesn't necessarily exist. That preparation does mean opportunity. Fortune is putting yourself in those positions to be successful.
Okay. Now give me your 2 from you. We'll go back and forth like the book does.
So festive is one. And to me, that's really dives into what I recognize going into corporate environments, the environment that they had created. Because people think environments just happen. They don't. You create an environment. So I use an example of one day when I went to I was speaking in 2 different events one day. And one was just, it was good. Normal, just everybody was there. Everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing. And, I brought the energy. I did the training. I left. Later that day, I went to another place. This was all in Atlanta. And when I get on the elevator, I hear music playing. And, I'm kind of, doing this, and I'm thinking, man, I hope I'm going there. Well, it turns out I was going there. And so they had done a superhero theme. This is a big property management company. They weren't, just crazy or anything like that. And when I walked into the room, they had created an environment based on a sales promotion they were doing, and it was based on superheroes. So they were giving everybody something fun to do. They had music, they had all the things, and it just reminded me that if you want to create a motivational environment, you have to think about what's your festive. I mean, it's got to be real. It can't be fake, but it's just really about creating an environment where people thrive, where people are excited to go to work, where people want to be. I mean, people spend a lot of time at work. If you don't really want to be there, you really don't stay for long.
Okay. It's festive. It's
festive. Fearless.
I like fearless.
Fearless is really just dealing with your fear. You don't just put it on a shelf and say, well, I'm scared of that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go sit with Brad Lee in a podcast and fly all this way to Las Vegas and do all this crazy stuff. But, you step up and you say, I'm going to do that. And actually, it was him that encouraged me to do this because, he thinks outside the box like that. So I think it's really being able to take who you are and where you've been and say, okay, this why is this a fear for me? And what am I going to do with that? And I think you have to step up and step into those environments that would otherwise intimidate you and take it on.
Back to you for 2.
Voracious. Voracious meaning not being dumbed down to being able to do one thing, right? Like you were a car guy before. Now your skill set is endless, right? So our goal should be always to evolve, right? To adapt, to overcome, to evolve. So the idea of the book is like someone like Leonardo da Vinci, right? He did a numerous amounts of things. He was an artist. He was a biologist, right? He did numerous amounts of things. So to chase down something, right? Not to overextend ourselves, but to extend ourselves the right way in terms of evolution personally, to be great at multiple things, not just one thing.
And that's voracious.
Voracious.
I like ferocious too.
Ferocious is the next word.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Being relentless. So like, I've read a couple of Tim Grover's books, so I have a lot of inspiration from him. And that book, particularly Relentless, gave me a lot of inspiration for the chapter itself, right? Who are you when you're most relentless? What happens when you really have to step up and bring it to the table, right? You're going to bring the table or you're going to be the table, right? And at the end of the day, you have to step up, bring everything you have. You have to be relentless to be successful. And being relentless, being ferocious, being a killer is important, because society teaches these days, like you said, right, to be a puss, to be offended at everything, right? To be ferocious means you're a killer, means you go get it, means you stop at nothing. And that's what the chapter's about.
2 from you.
Well,
I like this back and forth.
So fair. So life isn't fair. And, the point of that is the sooner you accept that, you're 10 steps ahead of other people. Because when you wait on fair to happen in your life, you're just going to be waiting your whole life. So it's taken the situations in your life that you're like, they shouldn't have gotten that promotion over me. Well, they did. So what are you going to do about it? It's taking those moments where you feel like you've gotten cheated, left behind, something like that, and using it instead of stepping behind it and saying, well, that life just isn't fair. The corporate world isn't fair to people who don't have degrees and things like that. So,
well, corporate world isn't fair.
It's not.
And it isn't, I'm thinking of an F word, trying to get these F words out of my head. But, corporate world, I mean, if you're in the corporate world, folks, not at a high level, obviously, because you can make a little bit of dough up there, but you're just normally in the corporate world, my advice to you would be find another job. Like F is find.
Yes.
So you can flourish.
Yeah.
Right? Because more than likely you're going to, corporate is safe and it's not going to get you rich.
Right.
Would you agree?
I do.
I mean, I don't understand why people go to the corporate environments. I mean, I understand people need jobs. Good, go get one. And now you have one, pay your bills. Now get a little bit more fearless and venture out and find a little side hustle and work on that side hustle until it gets bigger than your corporate salary. And then leave corporate America and go build a business.
Yeah.
I don't understand how people will just work in corporate America their whole life.
Yeah. And that goes back to fear,
Yeah. Essentially that is what they fear, or they lack ambition. Maybe you think it's ambition or fear?
Maybe a little of both. I think people get complacent and they're like,
I think it's fear. I think you hit it on the head, because if I said to you, hey, you can do anything you want and you'd succeed at anything you'd want to do, are you going to that cubicle every day? No. There are people who be like, well, I'd do this and I'd do that. But it's the fear and the self-image or lack thereof that keeps them from achieving what they want. Was that 2?
Fast.
Fast. I like fast.
Fast isn't first, though.
Could be.
Well, it could be. If, and I learned this, I'm an MMA student. I'm working on a black belt.
No shit?
Yep.
No way.
I am.
Dang.
So
working on a black belt. Where are you though?
I'm a purple belt
already.
I'm over halfway there.
In jiu-jitsu?
Jiu-jitsu's one of them. Taekwondo. We're a mixed martial arts. My instructor is all of them. So it takes quite a while. So it's a 4-year process.
Damn.
But when I went in, I'm like, trying to show them how strong I am, how fast I am. And my instructor said, let me just tell you something. slow is smooth and smooth is fast. He said, your fast will be effective when it's smooth, but otherwise it's just plain old fast. And so his teaching for me is you can't just barrel through all this stuff. It has to be right. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble and you're going to get hurt. So my philosophy was always just be fast. But, you know, in some of the philosophies that I've learned there, he's challenged me a lot because he's like, you got to get it right and you got to get it good and you got to make sure your technique is good and all that. So it was really just a challenge for me to go in there and, you know, not just muscle my way through. There are older people in the class and it's fun, but at the same time, it's very technically sound and they don't let me get away with stuff unless it's right. And so, you know, you got to get really smooth and it's got to look like you know what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just barreling through.
Where do you live nowadays?
Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Baton Rouge, how long have you been there?
12 years, 13 years.
So does everybody in the community know you? Like, hey, that's Beth Townsend.
A lot of people do.
Why don't you run for like government or city official or something?
I've thought of that.
Yeah, you'd make a good like mayor or something.
She would do great.
You're like the mom everyone wishes they had.
Yeah, lucky.
So you live in Dallas.
I do.
And you took the job up there.
Yes, sir.
What is your goal in life?
To be a dealer.
You want to own a dealership?
Mm-hmm.
What are you waiting on?
I'm getting the right experience I need under my belt, right? Like I've always been at dealerships that did business the right way, but in certain quantities, right? I've never been working 120 to 140 deals for myself a month. So now I'm in that position where I'm doing that, right? I'm at a higher level of leadership where I have 25 salespeople versus a previous store's 12. Right. So there's more going on. There's a lot more money flowing in and out of the cash register, a lot more business I'm accountable for, making sure the deals get funded. The SIPs are gotten up front. We have insurance on every car, right?
Have they sent you to GM school yet?
No, sir, not yet. But everybody, so the dealership that I'm at, every manager, finance manager, desk manager, and the general sales manager sold cars at the dealership. I'm the only person in management who's an outsider. Of the gentlemen, of the dealer's 4 stores, every partner is also began as a salesperson there. So it's a very tight-knit store where it's not an easy store to work at. It's old school, you know, yelling happens, right? People get offended, they quit. It's not a store that everybody can work at. But I'm one of the only outsiders that's been able to make it. And I'm proud to say that because it's not an easy store to work at. I've had my ups and downs, right? But in the end of the day, every partner that he has sold cars there. Every manager he has sold cars there. And he really likes me. I was at his lake house on Sunday, you know, so I'm confident he has a future for me. He's been very clear that he has bright plans for my future. So I'm just trying to do what it takes to get there. And Berkshire Hathaway, of course, is a great automotive company, and there's a lot of expansion there.
Well, they're not going bankrupt. We know that.
Correct.
That's the old Warren Buffett
That's right.
owned organization. So you want to be a dealer. And right now you're like, what, coaching people, starting to?
Coaching, speaking. Like I said, I've made the switch kind of from the Christian environment. That didn't work out like I thought it would.
Why not?
I don't know. I really wish I knew. I think because there's a lot of me's. There's a lot now that publishing books has become second nature to many people. I mean, you could just basically do a book yourself. Most people have books. Most people are coaches. Most people have some of the same titles, so to speak, that I have. And most people in the Christian environments, you know, we'll just take a love offering and things like that. So,
or I was going to ask, do you think that people in those environments rely on God too much?
Yes.
Because a lot of them are like, if it's God's will.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think it works that way.
No.
It's an excuse almost.
Well, there's a big, starts with an F, so I'll call it an F word, but it's really 2 words. And I think it's the power we're all given. It's the gift we're all given.
Free will.
And most people don't realize that that's ultimately ours.
Right.
And that's free will.
Yeah.
And so everybody wants to just lay back, and, you know, a lot of faith-based people say, well, if it's God's will,
yeah,
bro, he's not up there running shit for you.
Right.
Okay. I don't believe anyway.
Right.
I think he said, make good choices. Here's some inspiration. Here's some letters. Here's some, there. If you ask me, where's the proof? There's the proof. The whole world, people, the eyeball, like just crazy, coincidences. But I don't think he's up there deciding for everybody what they need to do. Do you?
No, I don't. I'll give you a story that kind of shaped me and like what you're saying. Years ago, we were involved in this big church in Atlanta, and across the street from the church was Independence High School. Everybody in high school that had gotten kicked out of any other school was sent to Independence High School. So this church has this coffee shop, this massive, huge, wonderful pool tables, all the things, open building during the day. So the big question was, how are we going to reach out to these kids that have been kicked out of everywhere else? And the answer was, we're going to invite them over. So weeks go by, and I finally asked somebody, I said, hey, what are we doing with those Independence High School kids? And the leader of that person said, I'm still praying about that. And I said, in the meantime, half a year's gone by. These kids need somebody to help them today. And to open up a coffee shop in a church is not really asking a lot. So I thought it was a real cop-out. They didn't know what to do with those kids, so they really didn't do anything with those kids. And they could have really they could change some lives. And I just thought that was bad.
Have you ever heard anyone say, I don't feel called to do that? What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, I think that there's times that we see it. You see a need, you meet a need if you can. I don't think I think there are things in life where you're really great at things. He's really great at what he does. I'm really great at what I do, but that doesn't mean I can't step out of that and take a little season to do something I'm not necessarily equipped to do. For the short term to make a difference for someone. I think that sometimes, if we feel called to everything, then that defeats the purpose of faith.
Yeah, I think, the Christian culture is a little bit more focused on image than impact.
Yes.
Like, how do I look? How do I appear to people rather than what impact am I having? And that's not everybody. That's just some people. So you talk about purpose. What's the biggest lie women in particular believe about their purpose?
I think that they're going to get a telegram in the mail and it's going to say, do this on Tuesday, do this on Wednesday, and do this on Thursday. That's not going to happen. What you said earlier is really what I agree with. Help the person you used to be become the person you are now. I can help someone who grew up in a mess of a family because I did. And, if someone comes across my path, maybe that's my purpose that day, Now, to write a book, to do the things that I think we do, I think there's big picture things, but I think people think it's supposed to be so obvious and so easy. And, I've interviewed people since 2001. I never met a person who feels like they're living God's purpose for them that had it easy. They were on their knees more times than not saying, what in the world am I doing? But they kept doing. So I would say, quit thinking it's supposed to be easy.
You guys think it's possible to be rich and influential, but, or has church made that terrible thing?
I think it's definitely possible. I think you almost see a correlation of people that have positive impact in the world, right? There's a lot of people that over the years, like Warren Buffett, for example, he kind of followed Bill Gates' path. He got inspiration from Gates, but a lot of people that have done very, very well financially have presented a lot of positive impact to the world. And I almost see a correlation in the two. I don't believe it's a bad thing at all. They have the parable of the talents in the Gospels. What do you do with it, right? If God gives it to you, what do you do with it? Are you going to multiply it, or are you going to bury it and hope that one day it's more than what it is when you put it in the ground, right? But our job is to multiply it. And the further we can multiply it, the further impact that we can have. Biblically aside, right, if we can make money, you can have more impact, right? So if someone can go be a missionary in Africa for 30 years, that's an incredible thing, right? It is. It's a great vocation. It takes bravery, courage to do that. It takes heart. But if someone has $1 billion, then in 6 weeks, they could build 1,500 hospitals across the whole continent, right? With a snap of a finger. So money allows us to have a tool that gives us the ability to impact people on a larger scale, I believe.
So would you guys say you guys are faith-based big time, or just kind of, because it sounds almost like you're a little sour on it now?
No, I'm faith-based. I'm what I thought was going to be in writing books and what it is didn't turn out for me like I thought it would.
What did you think would happen?
I thought I was going to be a bestseller and I was going to be, hitting all the podcasts and everything as a Christian speaker. That didn't happen.
Well, why do you think so? Because they haven't been called, they're relying on, it's whatever's to happen is to happen. Nobody wanted help.
No, I think it's a saturated place. I think there's so many people like me that it's just a watered down little sprinkling of a lot of people. And unless you have someone who believes in you that can say, hey, she's got something different, you really have a hard time separating yourself. I have questions, not answers most of the time. But as a Christian, I am faith-based. As a Christian in the business world, I can make that shift and still have impact and still help people with that topic of purpose, because everybody just wants to know their life matters. Am I here for anything? Is this all there is? And I think sometimes that question really can get heavy because every day. And you talk a lot about the here and now in your book. I think sometimes you just take you gotta maximize the moment that you've got right now and do the most you've got with today. The big picture is important, but I think faith-based people do get caught up in, what's it going to look like? And I don't know if I can answer why that didn't work out like I thought it would. But it didn't. So I'm pivoting. And I think that sometimes if it didn't work there, try this.
I would agree with that too. Well, what's the most controversial truth you've ever shared on stage?
The most controversial truth I've ever shared on stage.
When you speak, what's like the big shocker you've dropped?
I think that, I had a lot of things in my past that could have really held me back. When you're on your own at an early age, you do a lot of really bad, stupid stuff. And sometimes just bad things happen to you. So I think the most controversial thing that I share with people that challenges them is that you're from the family you're from. And while that may have created some real problems for you, you got to overcome that. You got to step into that. You got to, years ago, I went to a counselor and the counselor said to me, because I was at a real crossroads. My kids were little. My husband and I we were struggling over discipline. And we had spankings in my house. Like, it was brutal. And I didn't want any part of that. But my kids needed discipline. My husband's like, we got to discipline our kids. I went to a counselor. And
so your husband wanted to spank and you didn't?
Basically, yeah.
Who won?
Well, we didn't spank.
Well, then you won.
Maybe. No. So what the counselor said to me, it was an opportunity for me to dig deeper into myself as to why because I knew I was holding him up. I was holding my husband back. And I wanted to know, is it me? Is it me?
Well, no, you're a female, and females are nurturing and they love their kids and they don't want to see their kids get spanked.
Right. But
men are more stoic, and we believe if we don't spank them, they're not going to learn.
Right.
Because I was spanked as a kid.
Yeah.
And I've never really spanked my kids. And they worked and they turned out, thank God. So again, but I see some kids that if they were mine, I'd beat their ass. Now again, not abuse,
Right.
Spank.
Yeah.
I would spank my children if they were terrible, but they're never that terrible. And now I got all girls and nobody wants to spank little girls. It's the freaking little snot-nosed, rambunctious kids that are disrespectful and not listening and talking back and really testing your boundaries.
Yeah.
So again, sometimes I think spanking. I'm like the husband.
Yeah.
And you were like, don't spank them.
Well, I was like, it was one of those moments that it was a defining moment for me because I really needed to figure out if I had some stuff holding over from my past. And was I carrying that into my own children's life?
Because you were spanked.
Oh, yeah. And so I remember thinking, I woke up one morning and I said, I need counseling. I need to know what my baggage is. I want to go find out what I'm carrying into my children that I don't know I'm carrying into or to my husband. So I went to counseling. And the woman told me, she said, well, do you want to have a life built on real relationships or fake ones? And I'm like, I really don't want to answer that question, but I know I have to. Okay, real. I want to build my life on real relationships. And she said to me that day, she said, you're going to have to talk to your mom. I said, because, my single mom worked, she did the impossible, right? I said, oh, no, you don't understand. We don't talk to my mom about things because during my high school years, she basically left me. She abandoned me. She was married to that third guy. She left me up by myself. And so the counselor said, you're going to have to talk to your mom because some things happened and you haven't settled that yet. And they were on her watch. So if you believe in you and you're going to live a life of believing in you, you've got to learn now to stand up for you. I said, not to my mom, the hero of her. Fine. Fake relationships, it'll be for you then. I said, okay, fine. So we literally wrote down a conversation I was going to have with my mom because I really had to face my mom. And so I called her and I said, Mom, we got to talk about some stuff. And my mom was very gracious about it. And I said, you kind of left me there and I did some stupid stuff and some bad things happened to me. And that was on your watch. And she said, I know, honey, I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? And from that moment on, my mom and I's relationship, I could go back and ask her anything because I knew she wasn't going to get mad at me and I knew she wasn't going to get her feelings hurt. I needed to learn how to be a good me. I wanted to be a good mom and a good wife, but I had some things I didn't know where it came from. So I had to go back to that and say, okay, I'm shedding this. I'm done with this. And if I need to have tough conversations with people, I need to know how to do that.
So if someone is in that situation, that's what they should do.
They should have a good conversation, but they have to plan the conversation. You can't just step into, there's peacemakers and there's peacekeepers. Peacekeepers, fake relationships. Peacemakers, they dig into the deep. And I think if you have to have a tough conversation with someone, you have to step into it with a plan, not an emotional, oh, I'm so mad at you because of this. And I think you have to have a plan for that. And I had a scripted conversation to have with my mom because it was going to be emotional. I had to write it down and it worked. And I learned that day that I'm worth understanding what I need to know about the depth of me, because if there's something I need to fix, I need to know what it is.
Got to start at the problem, source. So if this was the last episode someone's listening to and they are getting off here going, yeah, I ain't getting the book and I'll keep effing all the way because I'm killing the game. I ain't changing for nobody. What would you tell them? Either one of you. What would your advice be to the person thinking that right now?
I would always say that if you think that you've figured it all out, then you're never going to figure it all out, right? You should always, like she said, you should always have more questions than answers. So those that feel like they have every answer in the world, right? Albert Einstein says, once you stopped learning, you start dying, right? So if you stop learning, if you know everything, you're already on the way to your coffin.
Right? What if they're not buying the F thing. They're going to continue to drop Fs.
Well, that's okay, right? The concept of the book is not that the F word is a bad word, that we're gonna just make this huge mistake by saying it in society, right? The concept of the book is that words go deeper than simply what we hear sometimes. Words mean more than simply what they sound like sometimes. The F words in the book are not to replace the F word, right? The words are meant to transform our lives and to give us an understanding that words go deeper than the way they sound just simply in conversation.
Well, I love the title, folks. There's more than one F word. Redefining success one F word at a time. Beth Townsend and Rhett Townsend. You name him after Rhett Butler?
We did. We were in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And it may not necessarily after Rhett Butler, but it was so right to be in Atlanta. But I want to say one thing
I'm
about
going to Atlanta tomorrow for a speech.
Come on.
I want to say something about what I would say to someone who's like, I don't want to buy the book.
Yes.
It's really not about that. I have this philosophy. You have to know who you are, and you have to really make a list of who you're not. And I think you have to be able to say, everybody wants to know, these are the things I am. Okay, good. These are the things I'm not. I'm not a complainer. When I went in the corporate world, I learned that's not your path to success. I wasn't a slacker. You begin to put in your column, these are the things I'm not, never, ever going to be. And that's what you learn from people. And for me, the book is a call to action, not necessarily to quit cussing. It's to figure out who you are so you can be proud of who you're not, and you can kick it and you can be successful and you can reclaim success one word at a time, whatever your word is.
That's a bomb, folks. Well, I appreciate you guys coming in. I think everyone should go get the book on, Amazon, wherever books are sold.
It's a fun read.
Go look it up. There's more than one F word. Beth Townsend and Rhett Townsend. Where do they follow you?
Instagram, Facebook. I'm easy to find. Rhett Townsend online. I have a Rhett's Rides page that I used to do when I sold cars. Of course, when you transition to management, it becomes more about your people than it does you. So I slowed it down whenever I graduated from being a salesperson.
But that's how they find you? Instagram?
That's how they find me. Find me online. Call me.
Rhett Townsend?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is? At Rhett Townsend?
It's just Townsend Rhett. Right.
Townsend Rhett. What's your Instagram?
Beth Townsend. So all mine are bethtownsend.com. You can find all the links there, the book's there. And it's all just click and go.
Folks, also blow them up in the DMs if you have questions. I can tell that they're passionate. They'll be happy to answer them. Yeah. Till next time, keep it effing real.